First of all, we hit the trade deadline this week, Action. I don't
Mhm.
know about you. I have never seen such an active trade deadline for the NFL. It was like the NBA out there. Tons of moves, kind of exciting, really. I just highlighted some of the ones that of note. Miami is obviously going for it this year, even though
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly have a decent team. They landed Bradley Chubb from Denver, defensive end, and they're like 30th in pass rush, so that should help them. He actually signed a big extension today, so he's on the team for a few years. And then Jeff Wilson, the running back from San Francisco, went over there now that McCaffrey went off, and that reunites obviously McDaniel with Wilson in the backfield and Mostert. It's like San Francisco East now.
Yeah,
You
true.
think that's a pretty impactful trade?
I think Bradley Chubb is going to help them quite a bit. That, like you mentioned, their pass rush has been not very good this year, and he's a game changer. So they're definitely going for it. They're going to have a hard time winning the division, though. So I mean, they're going to have to take this show on the road in the playoffs, which is going to be tough for a team from Miami.
I thought it was kind of interesting. The San Francisco move didn't surprise me. The Denver move did. I mean, they're still in the mix. I mean, I don't like them this year, but their defense certainly was good. It's a downgrade for the defense, right? I mean, he's a stud.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's weird. Uh, for your team, the Colts are resellers, I guess. They got rid of Naeem Hines. Not that he's a high end guy, but I think it's more for Buffalo. That backfield is still not great, even with Hines, but he probably fits that offense pretty well. I mean, dynamic pass catcher, and I mean Singletary's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of strange. I mean, they sent Zach Moss back to
Right.
Indy, and he was really like their big bell cow back near the goal
Thumper.
line. And so
Mhm.
now they have three backs that fit the same mold between Singletary, the rookie Cook, and now Naeem Hines. So it was really kind of strange to me. I suppose that Hines is going to pick up some more touches, at least in the pass game. And I
Mhm.
think they brought him in as a punt return specialist also.
Well,
But
you
I
know
mean,
who the short yardage back is for Buffalo. I mean, it's
yeah,
Josh
that's true.
Allen.
That's true. Maybe they don't need the short yardage back because it's Josh Allen. That's a good point.
Right. And I think the way that they decided to be their game, it's more edge rushing versus up the middle. We'll
Yeah.
see. But I agree with you. It doesn't. They can't get in a game where it's a conventional rush game. I don't think they have the running back for that.
Yeah.
And Minnesota, we'll kind of jump back and forth, but Irv Smith, tears his, or I think it was Achilles,
Yep.
yeah, tore his Achilles, so he's out for the year for as tight end for Minnesota. Enter in T.J. Hawkinson from your Detroit Lions over there, so really don't miss a beat, maybe even upgrade with Hawkinson, and he's been a guy who, in a lot of fantasy lineups, people think that he's going to be great, but in Minnesota, I think he can thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good pickup for the Vikings, definitely.
Yeah, a couple more. Chase Claypool comes to my Bears. They probably overpaid for this guy. I mean, he's a big target. He's a dynamic player. Certainly a big target for Justin Fields, who's improved, but kind of a weird move a little bit. But it kind of paves the way for Pickens and maybe clears the runway for the Pittsburgh guys, even though they stink too. Both two
Hmm.
bottom feeders there. And then last me, Edmonds was kind of the trade-off. They kind of shipped Edmonds out of Miami to Denver, who he's pretty dynamic, but I don't think he's much of a game changer as Chubb for that matter, Bradley Chubb.
Definitely.
On the injury front, I noted that Cooper Kupp left the game late against San Francisco on kind of a meaningless play, which was kind of rough. But he is limited practice right now, so we'll have to monitor that if we're looking at that pick this weekend with his ankle. Some guys that are definitely out. We already mentioned Irv Smith, but Mike Williams is out for the Chargers. That whole Chargers team is hurt. I mean, everybody's hurt in that damn team.
Yeah. And I saw Keenan Allen was presumably going to be set to return this week, but he re-aggravated the hamstring during the bye somehow. And so he's maybe even questionable to return this week against Atlanta.
Yeah. So we'll see. For Tampa, they got a big loss. Shaq Barrett tore his Achilles. He's out for the year.
Ouch.
Um, so it's kind of like more downgrades for Tampa. We'll see if they're even, and they're still, I mean, Atlanta's ahead in that division, but they still could win the division and make the playoffs. I think a big handicap here is Ryan Tannehill. We talked about that last week. He ended up being downgraded to out. Um, and it's Malik Willis, is that his name?
Yeah. Nailed it.
Willis is the quarterback for Tennessee. So he did not practice again, meaning Tannehill this week. Now, they did get the cover last week in Tennessee over, was it Houston, whoever they're playing?
Yeah.
Um, but they got a much tougher matchup this week. We'll see how that goes. A couple more. Mark Andrews for Baltimore. He's had a shoulder injury, hasn't played great. He did not practice today. He's obviously the target for Baltimore, and they already lost what's his name, Rashad Bateman for the year. So, the Ravens, more injuries this year. Detroit, your guy, Swift, limited on Thursday with his ankle. He did play last week for Detroit, but they're going to need him against Green Bay. But more importantly, Green Bay. Rodgers, he's limited today. So, I think he'll probably play with that thumb, but, we'll have to talk if that influences your handicap on Green Bay.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't see the Rodgers news.
Yeah, and then your team, Jonathan Taylor, at running back, he didn't practice again today. He has an ankle injury. He played last week, but wasn't great. So he's questionable. And then I don't think he's going to play this week, but I just noted that Washington is getting Chase Young back. He had his first practice yesterday, and off his ACL injury. That team's kind of turning their season around. Maybe he will help them on the defensive end.
Yeah, 3 wins in a row now for the Washington Commandos.
That's right. Who are you gonna try to put in some shares there with Robert Griffin III? I heard he's raised $400 million already to buy the team.
Really? Well, I think he's a little short. Gonna need to raise a few more shekels than that.
You can open up your bankroll. Come on. You could consolidate some of that money from all those books you've got all over the place. Just he wants to take 10 fans to buying this team. I'm like, well, you're gonna need more than 10, but that's fine.
The Manning brothers, the Manning family has really been interested in getting in the game. So they could be buyers too. They could partner up with RG3.
That's right. Let's go over the picks from last week. In week 8, obviously, we kind of went heavy favorites in general. We did get the Eagles to come in. They were 10.5-point favorites in their game. They dominated the Steelers from start to finish, like they always do, especially in the first half. Final score 35-13. Not much to say here. The only thing I was going to say, and they're actually playing right now against Houston, can this team go 14-0? If they can get back past the Texans.
Mm-hmm. What about 17-0? Are you counting week 15 as a loss already, or?
You got to play Dallas again in Dallas, right? So I'm not saying I wouldn't, but at the same time, I'm thinking more. If you look at the schedule over the next few weeks, it is easy.
They're favored in every game, yeah.
And it's not just because they're good; their schedule really sucks. All season it hasn't been good. So, let's go on. Dallas. We've also went with the boys against the Bears. Dallas was 9.5-point favorites, but I will say, they put up 49 points on the Bears, and the Bears obviously shipped off. I didn't mention Roquan Smith this week in a trade, but he left too. But the Bears put up 29 points on this defense. It wasn't half bad, but they lost 49-29. Usually that's like a college score.
Yeah, well, aided by Justin Fields not learning how to touch a defender down on the Micah Parsons fumble recovery touchdown. And then, we traded some texts on Sunday. My takeaway in this game is that the Bears offense has found something. Mm-hmm. We saw it the week before on Monday night against the Patriots, but Justin Fields is playing better and they're moving the football. So Bears and over, I think, is certainly something I'm looking forward in the rest of the season.
A little preview for the Miami game. All right. So a game I just noted, Carolina +4 against Atlanta. This was a wild game. I wasn't following it as close because I was at the softball diamond. I was looking at the score and just noted there was a lot of points being scored. But the Panthers, down big, down by 6 late. PJ Walker coming out of nowhere last 2 weeks, puts up a Hail Mary touchdown to DJ Moore. They missed the extra point action to win the game. They could have won the game. And they were 4-point dogs. So they go to overtime. What do? Same dude misses a field goal. But they still cover the number, even though Atlanta did win the game 37-34. But that's 2 weeks in a row that Atlanta hasn't covered the number.
Yeah, wild game for sure. They definitely should have lost. And if it wasn't for DJ Moore's celebration, they would have lost because it pushed the extra point back to make it like a 35-yard kick. And
that was a weird call. Come on. He's off the field. He's celebrating. He just won the game, basically. Come on.
Definitely a tough call.
This game, we went on the wrong side. Arizona at Minnesota. They were 3.5-point dogs. We were close on this one. I guess I didn't put the score up. They lost by 6. They had their chances late to get inside this number. But give credit to Minnesota. I mean, they're obviously, they're 6-1 now at the top of the NFC North. They're 3.5 games over the Packers. I mean, this team is, I mean, they're almost a lock for the playoffs now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I they're definitely in the driver's seat for the division. I can't see the Packers, or I mean, well, we don't even need to mention the Bears or the Lions, but I
Yeah.
don't think the Packers are going to compete with them. So it's clear that they're going to be front runners in this division. But I still think that this is a team that doesn't quite meet what their expectations are in terms of their stats. I mean, their record doesn't indicate what they really are, in my opinion.
No, agreed. No question. We also went with Miami. This was a nice pick by you, although it was a bit of a sweat early.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's 3.5 point favorites on the road at Detroit. They were getting crushed at halftime in this one. I think that was down, was it 27-10 at halftime?
I think they were down 10 points at halftime.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
they roared back and won 31-27 and just kind of shut down Detroit in the second half. So, fins up, fins up, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tua was awesome again last week. I mean, between him and Geno Smith, I think those are the two most overachievers in the quarterback department this season.
Well, they're 5-0 when he finishes the game, right? I mean,
Hmm.
so far this season. So all 5 of their wins with him at the helm. Buffalo did not come in for us. They were 11.5 point favorites. This number kind of got moved down to 10.5 at game time. They really had their chances. They dominated Green Bay in this on Sunday Night Football. They were up 27-10, but they only really, got 3 points in the second half, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, and I was pissed because on that last drive, it looked like they were going to get field goal range when they're up 27-17, and
Hmm.
unnecessary roughness penalty knocks them out, and there you have it. So they didn't cover the number. They won 27-17, but it wasn't like in most of these games when the teams don't cover, it's usually they're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
The game's close or something like that. In this case, it just was too big of a number.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Bills were in control this entire game. And if it, despite some lackluster play in the second half, I think they were going to cover this game. So I wouldn't hesitate on pulling the trigger in the same spot again. I still think it was the right side. The two picks certainly did them in.
Yeah. Last game I wanted to mention was one of the ones we were on the fence with San Francisco, -1.5 on the road at the Rams. But we all know when San Francisco goes to the Rams, it's a home game. So it's, we should have factored that in the handicap. But,
Yeah.
really early in this game, I was like, oh, good. We stayed away from this game. Rams were up 14-10 at halftime. Well, guess what? Second half, it was the McCaffrey show. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. Needless to say, I went against him in fantasy, but they went 31-14 going away.
Yeah. I mean, they did it again. I agree. I missed most of the second half, but watching the recap, it was clear that the Niners really just dominated them again, like always.
Yeah, for sure. So just the trends from the week, you're basically seeing this week after week now. We can still mention it, but underdogs 8-7 this week. Unders totals were 7-7-1. So we're basically splitting it down the middle more or less. The books have got these numbers just right, with only the spread only mattering in 2 out of the 14 games for the teams that did cover. So 14% of the season. It's tougher and tougher, right, as the season goes on to pick these games because the books are getting tighter.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, you can see it in the numbers here that the bookmakers are getting it right on, or maybe it's the bettors that are just whipping these numbers into shape.
It's true. I think it's true. We've talked about it. Usually the best number. We've talked about line movements
Hmm.
late on some of these games. A couple weeks ago, we moved with the line and it didn't go our way. So sometimes maybe the
Yeah.
line is, early line might be the right way. So let's go to week 9 action. We've got a lot of teams on bye. It's like called Buy-Mageddon. It's one of these 6-team buys. You got the 49ers, the Broncos, the Browns, Cowboys, Giants, and Steelers. So it's a limited slate. There's only 2 games in the late window, and obviously no London game this time. Um, Tonight, obviously, Eagles and Texans are playing right now. Not a who cares, but the Eagles were 14-point favorites on the road, 45.5. I don't know what the score is now, but it was pretty even early. It's that number's getting bigger and bigger. I mean, obviously the Texans aren't very good.
Yeah, well, I mean, Damian Pierce is running all over them. It's
Hmm.
tied now, 3 seconds left in the second quarter, and the Eagles are
Well,
lining up for a field goal to take the halftime lead.
And that's big because the Eagles are the best second quarter team in the league. So
Yeah,
if you are able to run even with them or even be, net -3, it's probably a good game. Maybe, we'll see how it goes in the second half. I'm sure you get some, second half action.
I'm working on that right now.
You know what he's doing. All right, let's get into the main slate for Sunday. You've got the Raiders again on the road. We didn't talk about them. They didn't show up at the Saints.
No.
And somehow they're favored again. I mean, they're playing at Jacksonville. Jacksonville opened as a 1-point favorite at home, 47-point total. In the Circa contest, the Raiders are favored 1.5, and that's pretty much the market with a 48-point total. I'm not advocating 100% for the Jags here, but there's no way I am going to back the Raiders on the road. What's going on with this line?
Yeah, I don't know. It is curious, isn't it? I mean, a
Yeah,
team that scored 0 points last weekend, 24-0 against the Saints, and now the second week in a row, they're listed as road favorites. And I think there's two parts to this. It's two downsides to the Jags is obviously returning from London, no bye this week. They're coming straight back to play. And
right.
I also read that the Raiders stayed east this week after the game in New Orleans. They went to Clearwater somewhere in Florida and had their little like camp in Florida. So, I mean, probably some edge there to the Raiders, but I still don't think that can get you anywhere close to 1.5 point favorites. And I think that there's definitely value on the Jags here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've got this. The Jags should be favored. I mean, here's the problem with the Jags. Their first 3, 4 games of this year really
Yeah.
kind of skew the numbers. They
Yeah.
were they were what 2-1 at one time, and they obviously had some tough losses. Now they've lost like I think it's 5 or 6 straight. So it's a team that it's hard for me metrically to trust. I mean, they didn't win in London, right? Is that
Mhm.
right? Didn't they lose in London?
They lost. Yeah, the
But
Broncos
the
kicked the late
London
field goal.
Jags, come on. I mean, this is their spot. So I'm glad we stayed away from that one too, action. But
Yeah.
so I'm with you. I think there's value on the Jags. I just don't know if I can trust them. I mean, I have it in my index picks. I mean, it's hard to ignore the number here. I think they should be like a 3-point favorite at home against the Raiders suck. I mean, but again, there's got to be something up, like you said, the handicap. So I'm happy to stay away too.
Yeah, I mean, historically speaking, teams that get blanked on the scoreboard are going to be profitable against the spread the next week because, I mean, just in general, the public is going to line up to fade them, and then the odds
Yep.
makers are going to shade that way. But I don't think this number shows that at all.
No.
They definitely should not be 1.5 point road favorites here. I think this number should be much closer to a pick 'em.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, I guess we can put the L on the Jags. It's just
Yeah,
nail biter.
think
Yeah.
so.
All right, the second game is Carolina playing against the Bengals. Carolina, it opened as a pick. I don't know when that came out. That must have been a long time ago. But the 43-point total. Now, Cincinnati is a 7.5-point favorite in the contest, 42.5-point total. I don't know, dude. Carolina is one of these teams that I loved them at the beginning of the year, and then they sucked. And the last couple weeks they played great. But the Bengals, man, like I have this line exactly right. I've matched the odds makers, but I know we just saw Cleveland beat up on Cincinnati, but Carolina's playing better now. They're playing more inspired ball. So 7.5 seems like way too many points. I can't back the Bengals here.
Yeah, I was really lining up for Cincinnati at 7. I
Mm,
think, at 7, it's a bet that I've made already, and I still like Cincinnati in this game because defensively, the Carolina Panthers don't generate a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and that's really been the bugaboo for the
right.
Bengals this year. And so I think that the Bengals are going to line up and have some success offensively, but I just don't think we could get there with 7.5 for our contest purposes.
Yeah, agreed. Happy to pass. Happy to pass. Oh, there are less games this week, but we should pass.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Chargers against the Falcons. Chargers coming off the bye. 3-point favorites on the road. 48.5-point total opener. Now it's 49.5. Still 3 points in the contest. I've heard many people, many pundits pump up the Chargers this week. I can't, I don't know if I can get there. And it's not even, look, I don't think Atlanta's that great. Okay. Their metrics, they're 4-4. They're definitely Paper Tigers is my co-host likes to say in terms of their record, but the team can run the ball.
Yeah.
They might get Cordell Patterson back this week. The Chargers aren't good against the run, and there's a lot of injuries for the Chargers. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to get on board with a team that barely covers at home, let alone on the road.
I'm with you. I love the Atlanta Falcons this week, especially at 3. I think this is probably my best bet of the week. The Chargers are so banged up, not
Mhm.
not including Mike Williams. We mentioned Keenan Allen at the top is questionable to
Hamstring.
play, and Josh Palmer, the third receiver, got a concussion recently, and so he's questionable. So they're down to their 4th-string wide receiver. And then on the other side of the ball, you've got J.C. Jackson is out, the
Mhm.
number 1 quarterback, and Bosa is still on IR or not playing. And so I think the Falcons should not be listed as 3-point underdogs in this matchup, especially when you consider their run game too. They're going to be able to run the ball against the Chargers.
Yeah, I have this game as a pick 'em. So I mean, it's 3 points of value. So looks like we're on board with the Falcons again. Let's go. They're
Yeah,
going to get back on the covering ways.
yeah. I mean, last week they were laying 4.5. That's a totally different
Yeah,
proposition from taking 3 at home.
for sure. All right, Green Bay against Detroit. Green Bay also coming off the bye. Again, I'm not sure when that. I don't think pick. I don't know when you saw a pick in this game. I had it as 3.5 opener too. So regardless, right now in the contest, Green Bay is a 3.5 point favorite on the road. The total open is at 50. Now it's at 49.5, pretty close. So obviously, to me, I was gonna finally back the Packers, even though it's a bad number.
Packer
Um,
backer.
backer, but obviously with Rodgers and his thumb, I mean, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't get there. But let me see what I would have had this. I would have had this actually as like a 2 point favorite on the road, so it's a little bit heavy towards the pack in terms of the metrics. It's just tough. The Lions just give up so many points.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, I like the total in this game. I think that both teams are going to score quite a bit, but I think that there's a little bit of value on the Lions here at 3.5. They opened up, played pretty well in the first half last week, and I think even throughout the third and fourth quarter, they were in that game throughout, even
Yeah,
though Miami ended up getting the cover. And this is a divisional game. You're a home underdog here in the Lions, and you got to figure they're going to get up to play against Aaron Rodgers. Although I do think that Aaron Rodgers is primed for a big game himself. Certainly helps playing against the Lions defense. I think that the Packers are going to give up a lot of points against the Lions too. I mean, the Lions are number 2 adjusted yards on offensive line, and the Packers are giving up a ton of yards on their defensive line. So you got to
yeah,
figure that Swift and company and Jamal Williams are going to be able to run the ball very well.
right. Ooh, that's a tough one. Tough one for me. I know it's one of those things. It's like, has Aaron Rodgers dominated the Lions more than the Bears? Probably. I mean, it's a when Stafford was there, every now and then they play good, in a game. But
Sure.
um, based on the number, we can put a yellow on the Lions. I just don't know if I can get there.
What do you make? What do you make the spread with a healthy Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I'm assuming my numbers are healthy, right? So I just
Yeah.
made it's -2. So it should be
Okay.
2 point favorites according to my numbers, right?
Yeah,
But
and that's building in some level of Detroit home field advantage.
yeah, the 1 point, I gave him one
All
point of
right.
field advantage. So it's, I put him, which sounds crazy, I put him 3 on a neutral, but, it's because Green Bay's not playing well. But
Yeah.
they're gonna play better. They're coming off the bye, right? They gotta play better, I
Yeah.
would think. But
I mean, Romeo Dobbs looked pretty good last
Mhm.
week. I mean, he caught that big touchdown pass. I mean, that really got them some momentum in that game on Sunday night. So
yeah,
it seems like he's building some rapport with Rodgers, but I mean, outside of him, I don't really know that they have a ton of weapons either.
that's
So
true. They didn't have a bye last week. They played
yeah, that's
Buffalo. We
that's
might as
right.
well bypass that game because they weren't a chance.
All right, let's move on. We
All
can
right.
come back if we need to.
Vikings against the Commanders. This is a good example here. The Vikings open as a 3.5 point favorite. 43.5 point total. It's down to 3 in the contest as their road favorites at the Commanders. 43.5 point total. Still, I like this Washington team still. I mean, it's Heineke. It's Heineke factor. He's zany. Gets out of trouble. He's dancing around. I mean, it's really not. Minnesota metrically should be favored by a little more, but this also factors in. My numbers are full season numbers. When the Commanders were playing like crap, that factors in, right? The last two
Yeah.
or 3 weeks, they've played way better. I mean, defensively, they played much better. And offensively, finally, Heineke is making some things happen with all these weapons. So I'm on board with the Commanders here. You might need to talk me out of it with the Vikings.
Yeah, I was really hoping that we'd see a 3.5, which is
Yeah.
available in a lot of places in the market. So those of you out there listening, looking for Washington tickets. Oh shoot, I may have spoke too soon. I missed the 3.5. Darn. Okay, it's all threes now. But I'm with you. I like the Commanders in this game too. Heineke has clearly made a difference on this team, and we talked about it at the top. I still think that Minnesota is overrated, and so for that reason, the way Washington has been playing lately, I think that there's value with them as home dogs here.
What do you think about the total here? I'm a little surprised. I know that the Commanders' defense has been better of late, but Minnesota can score, and their defense isn't that great. This 43.5 seems low to me, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely agree. I think the way that Minnesota's defense has been playing, 21st ranked, certainly not anything that scares you. And then on the other side, Washington is 30th ranked, so they're giving up a ton of points themselves.
Right.
And 43 definitely right in that sweet spot. 44 is probably a key number. So if you can get under that, I like it.
Yeah, this would be my same game teaser special. I'd go up, I'd go
There you
plus
go.
9 and go down to 37.5 with the tease up. You know what I'm saying? Like for the
I
go
like it.
overs. All right, so let's go to this one. We were talking about the Dolphins and the Bears. The Dolphins opened as a 4 point favorite on the road at the Bears, 44 point total. Now it's 45.5 point total. It's a pretty big spread. I think the problem for me is it's hard to quantify the trade for both teams because the Bears are slowly getting on defense getting worse, right? So they're definitely an
Yeah.
over team, like you said. And Miami could play really well here, or they could, it could be windy and it's a little cold in Chicago. It's not that cold, but it's supposed to be windy this weekend, I think.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's why the total's low. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't back the Bears, even though on my sheet it says the Bears are the index pick, +5, take the points. But I don't know if I can do that. I think this defense is too suspect.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely have a lean to the Bears, but I'm not sure that I can get there for our contest purposes.
Right.
But I do really like the over in this game. I think you've seen it tick up a little bit despite the potential for some wind and colder temperatures, and rightly so because the Bears have found something on offense. And I don't think Miami's defense has been all that great this year, despite the addition of Bradley Chubb. Not
Right.
sure he's going to make a huge difference with Justin Fields' mobility. And on the other side, Miami's offense is just humming along, fifth ranked offensively, and they're going to put up points on Chicago as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so just an overplay versus get in the contest. I'm fine with that. It makes my
Cool.
life easier. Okay, so here we go. Bills going to the Jets. Bills open as a 13 point favorite, 47 point total. It's 12.5 on the contest now with a 47 point total. The Jets, we are who they thought they were. We thought they were. They got stomped at not stomped, but they got beat soundly by the Patriots last week. So, the Belichick thing. I think the Bills defense is great, but I don't know about this number, dude. It's 12.5. Like, I mean, it's a divisional rival. It's the Jets. I mean, they got one game this season they want to win. It's this one right here, right? So I take the Jets and the points. I mean, I don't know if we can do it in the contest. It's probably fool's gold, but I just think it's a bad spot for the Bills here.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get on board with that. Last year they trounced the Jets twice, 27-10 in Buffalo and 45-17 in New York,
Right.
both laying numbers higher than this actually. So, um, It's a handicap that I've used time and time again, but the Buffalo Bills really just love laying it on their opponents. And now they have a new toy in the backfield, and Nyheim Hines. Don't know how many snaps he's going to get, but you have to figure they're going to run him out there at least a little bit. And on the other side, we touched on it last week. The Jets lost one of their key offensive linemen who protects Zach Wilson. And I think that just makes his problem of holding on to the ball too long and getting pressure in his face even worse against a really good defensive line that the Bills have. So I expect that there's going to be a couple of Zach Wilson turnovers this weekend. And if that happens, they have no chance of covering this point spread.
Okay. My Jets, they were such a darling for me 2 weeks ago. I
know.
saw this on the field.
They lost Brees Hall. I think that was a huge factor
Yeah.
too. They're not the same offense. The two backs that they have are just replacement level, and losing Brees Hall was huge for that offense.
For sure. So let's flip it around. Would you take the Bills in the contest?
Yeah, I like the Bills. I think we should take them.
Okay. Let's put a yellow. I'm not going green yet because that's the green for the Jets. You want to put the blue on there or something for the Bills. All right. Let's talk about your Colts. Colts are going to the Patriots. Patriots opened as a robust 6.5-point favorite, now 5.5 in the contest. The total's pretty much the same, 39.5 to 40. My biggest thing for this one, it's about where I have the line actually. I have it at 5, so it's really close. But it's the Ellinger factor, right? It failed against Fields, okay? But normally young quarterbacks against Belichick defenses do not fare well. So I could get on board with the Pats here, but I'm not sure how you feel about it.
Yeah, I'm torn because when this first came out, 6.5, I was kind of thinking, wow, is the New England offense really one that should be laying that kind of number in the NFL? Probably not.
No.
But on the other side, I think this handicap is more about the Belichick defense going up against that Indy offense, because I, like you last week, thought that Sam Ellinger was going to be able to use his legs a bit. I lost a few prop bets on Ellinger rushing, anytime touchdown, rushing prop over, name it. I lost it. And I think it's clear that he's not really an NFL caliber rushing quarterback. And that's fair. He's not Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen.
Right.
And I think it's pretty evident, like you said, that Belichick that's not going to hurt him. We've seen Justin Fields do it already this season. And so without that element and knowing that JT is banged up, Nyheim Hines is no longer on the team, I think that Indy is going to have a really hard time scoring this weekend. So I think they could cover this 5.5.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's one of those things, like, normally speaking, with a relatively high spread and a low total game, you usually favor the underdog. That's kind of how it works. And the Colts defense hasn't been terrible.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, how many points are the Colts going to score in this game? I don't know, 10? I did think that against the Bears, so that's my only caveat. But for some reason, they unleashed Fields, and I don't think Ellinger, like you said, has that kind of athleticism. So I'd be on board with the Pats here.
I like the Patriots too. I think it's a little bit contrarian.
I'd
definitely be interested in a Colts team total under as well. I think just doing the math here, it's going to be like 17. If you can get under 17, I like that bet a lot. Sure,
for sure. Okay, so battle in the AFC West in the 4 o'clock window. There's only 2 games. You've got Seattle going to Arizona. Seattle's been doing it. They're doing their thing. Arizona is they opened as a 3-point favorite at home. Now it's down to 2 in the contest. Total from 50 to 49.5. So a little bit of movement, but the Seahawks have been rolling, dude. It's tough. I don't know what to say. I guess Pete Carroll can't coach. What can be said? I do have this as some value to Seattle. Metrically, they're better than Arizona. But man, it's hard for me to get on board. I still can't erase that we've got Geno Smith having a career year, and at some point he's going to fall off the cliff, right?
I know. Yeah, maybe.
But we know Arizona's bad at home, so I'd be okay with Seattle on this game. I don't think I can get on board with Arizona.
Yeah, I love Seattle in this game. I make it Seattle -1 on a neutral.
Yeah.
So you could quibble about an Arizona home field advantage, but I think it's barely one,
Mhm.
probably,
Mhm.
which makes this game about a pick 'em. And we're catching two with the
Yeah.
road team. And just 3 weeks ago, we saw Seattle just really dominate the Arizona Cardinals defensively, which was a
Right.
very extreme surprise for me. Remember, this is the game we talked about where the Cardinals scored 9 points and one of them was a defensive touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I'll be honest with you, the young Seattle defense is performing. I mean,
mhm.
it's weird because they had that 15-point effort against the Chargers. Maybe they were banged up. What was it last week here? Pulling it up. I mean, they held the Giants at 13 points.
Yeah.
That's 3 weeks in a row, sub 15. And the Giants aren't a great team, but they've got an athletic quarterback. We know that, we saw what happened last time. So I think it's the defense that's making the hay, and Seattle still can control their destiny for the division. So this is a big game for them.
Yeah. Do you think that the introduction of DeAndre Hopkins changes the equation a little bit? He obviously didn't play in the first matchup.
Right. I mean, he's definitely getting his targets. He's played well in back-to-back games. I just don't know if they can run the ball. It's Arizona is all about running the football. If they do and run the football, they do well. Murray led their team in rushing against Minnesota, who's not a good rushing defense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Hopkins had a huge game last week, 159 yards and a touchdown. He's getting massive target volume, but to be honest with you, who cares if they can't, if they can't stop anybody? And then obviously, if Seattle gets a little bit more of a pass rush, I don't know. So it's definitely that's why the I think that's why you're not seeing what we were thinking, like a pick 'em. I think there's some value there already built in
Yeah.
for Hopkins' return, but I still think that gives us more of an edge because they won't take him away, but he's not going to win the game.
Okay. Right on. I like Seattle too. Let's color them
All
yellow.
right. Yeah. All right. So the other 4 o'clock game is the Rams going to the Bucks. I really thought this could be the NFC Championship game. It is not. I don't. Both these teams. I don't. I think this is an elimination game. It's so early in the season, but unless somebody kind of totally pieces together a run, Tampa opened as a 2-point favorite at home. 3 points in this game now in Circa. 42 and a half is a total, which is crazy because, like, again, look back a year, there's no way this 42 and a half point total would have been there. I can only go to the Bucks on this one. Action. My numbers can't do it. I know you love the Rams now, but I can't do it, dude. The Bucks are sucking. I know, but the Rams are worse. I don't know what to say. They can't run the ball. I, I don't know. Maybe Shaq Barrett's injury makes a difference for you, but you're going to say the Rams, aren't you?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's Shaq Barrett for me because we've talked about in weeks past how the Rams are having trouble protecting Matt Stafford because they have so many injuries on the offensive line, but the Bucks have not been able to get much pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And
Right.
now they've lost their one edge rusher in Shaq Barrett. And so I think the only way they're going to be able to generate some pressure is by blitzing Stafford. And he in his career has killed against blitzes. So I think it's going to be tough for Tampa to get the requisite pressure on Stafford in this game. And then on the other side, I mean, the Bucks offense has just been broken
Mhm.
recently. They played another terrible game last Thursday night against Baltimore.
Yep.
And so I'm just not sure that they should be 3-point favorites here. I think they can win the game,
Mhm.
but to lay three is a tough ask for me.
True. Well, let's stay away. I do think. Cooper Kupp being banged up doesn't help the Rams. I mean,
For
it's
sure.
just, I understand why the total's low. I guess we'll say
Yeah.
that. And you
Yeah.
figure Ramsey's going to lock up Evans. I don't know. I guess I just figured at some point they turn it around with a mini bye, but let's just stay away from the game. It's a
Yeah.
weird
I,
game, too.
I mean, I thought the Bucks were going to turn it around like the last couple home games too, and it hasn't happened. So I'd be happy to sit it out and see it. And they do play in such a crappy division. I think they're going to be in it through till the end. They could always still pull out that division championship.
Yeah, if they win 3 games in a row, they're back in it. So
Mhm.
did you know last week if Carolina would have beat Atlanta,
Yeah,
they technically would have been in first place.
I know. It's crazy.
And this is with the Saints. Unbelievable. Anyway, okay, so let's go to the Sunday night game, the Titans against the Chiefs. This again, I don't know when that pick came out. That might have been a preseason number. I'm seeing a little different number here. Action
Yeah, yeah.
opener for me was 10 and a half, and now it's up to 12 and a half. with with obviously Tannehill maybe not playing. So it's the total went from 47 to 46 and a half. I don't know. Let's face it, there's a lot of trends that we like to talk about when it comes to the Chiefs. Andy Reid off a bye. He's money, right? Not only with the win, he usually covers. It's just a big number. But I do love the Chiefs in the spot, but I know everybody is going to say that with all these trends that we know. And as much as I love Vrabel, I think he's still doing a hell of a job coaching because these metrics suck for the Titans. You ever look at these metrics? They
Yeah.
are not good, but they keep winning.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? It's just I think it's Vrabel. I mean,
It's the
he comes
greatest.
from Belichick. He learned the way, and they're winning games that they shouldn't. I mean, net yards per play is a negative -0.7. I don't have the stacked rank here, but I would venture to guess that's in the bottom three in the league.
Yeah.
And on the other side, Kansas City is gaining a positive -0.7 yards for every play that they run. So I
Middle of the pack. I mean, they're below Green Bay, but they're just above like teams like New Orleans, the Raiders, the Falcons. I mean, they're winning the division. They're 5-2. They're probably going to win the division easily. It defies logic, honestly.
mhm,
And look, I like Vrabel a lot. I mean, Henry had 200 and whatever yards, 219 yards rushing last week. He'd have to do that again, which we know he can do it. But
yeah,
again, with Malik Willis potentially starting, there's no way you get back the Titans, right? I mean, it's just
yeah.
yeah, at Arrowhead. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Vrabel's been playing games all week with this Tannehill and Malik Willis situation. I think he said on Wednesday that he's going to make an announcement later in the week, which caused the market to move a little bit towards Kansas City.
Right.
And I think it's evident. I mean, last week the Titans were able to win the game with Willis throwing 10 passes and completing six of them for 55 yards. And it was clear the week before that they didn't really trust Willis because they forced Tannehill back out on the field. And then they obviously realized they could win this game without Tannehill. But
Sure.
what are they going to do against Kansas City? I
Yeah.
think they're probably just going to throw in the towel
Yeah.
and go with Willis again and just take the L. Maybe, I mean, do you expect that they're really going to just run Henry into the ground in a game that they probably have no chance of winning? I'm
Well,
not so sure.
and again, they have I mean, how many game lead? They're a
Mm-hmm.
2.5 game lead in the division. So what if they lose? I mean, so it's really just they're not going to be the one seed this year, like last year. So I feel it. So, but do you think everybody in their mother's going to pick the Chiefs in the contest?
I don't know. No, I mean, I think historically speaking, these big numbers aren't quite heavily picked.
Mm-hmm.
So 12 and a half is going to scare some traditional sharps away. But I really think that the Chiefs are going to line up and just smash them on Sunday night. I
Yeah.
don't see how there's any way that the Titans can hang in this game. Even if they do go with Tannehill, he's obviously going to be limited with that high ankle sprain. And I think that
Right.
could almost be worse.
Right. Okay. I like it. Highlight it. It's going to be in the mix. We got a lot of games in the mix. Ooh, green. He's
I'm
going
going green.
green. Yeah.
It's in.
All right. So last game, Monday Night Football, the Ravens against the Saints. And again, like a great Monday Night Football matchup. Um, so the Ravens open as a 3.5 point favorite on the road at the Saints, 49 point total. Now it's 2.5 in the contest, 48 point total. Wow. I mean, I don't know what to tell you about this one. In my numbers, it technically the Ravens should be favored. This is a little bit of value. I don't know. They finally are. They won a couple games. They've covered a couple numbers. Great,
Mhm.
and the Saints stink. But I can't do it. Action. I'd love to stay away from this game.
Yeah, me too. I think this is like a classic New Orleans Monday night Superdome rocking.
Right.
And I think this lines up for a Saints cover. And you see it in the number too. I mean, this
Hmm.
probably should be a lot closer to three, but the
Yeah.
Circa
Really.
contest operators are ticking it down a little bit because they know that there's value on the Saints too. And I I think it's a good pass because you're right. The stats say that Baltimore should dominate, but the spot says it's New Orleans.
Yeah, Taysom Hill goes for 2 touchdowns or some fluky play that the Saints defense actually shows up. And again, think about it. The Saints aren't out.
Yeah. Hmm.
They're only another win or so away from the
Yeah.
the Falcons. So it's as bad as they've been. It's fascinating. The NFC South is so bad.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's review some of the picks that we think we'll like here. We got quite a few highlighted. The Jags at home, they're getting 1.5 points at home against the Raiders. The Falcons getting 3.5 points at home against the Chargers. You might be sensing a theme here. The Commanders getting 3 points at home against the Vikings. We like these home dogs.
Hmm.
On the flip, we like the Bills laying 12.5 on the road at the Jets. The Pats laying 5.5 at home against the Colts. The Seahawks getting 2 on the road at the Cardinals, and then finally the Chiefs laying 12.5 against the Titans on Sunday Night Football. So a bit of a theme there at the top, and then we've kind of flipped over, but I like it. I like where we're going.
Yeah, it's a good mix. Or home underdogs and some our classic heavy favorites that we've been on quite a bit this season.
Yeah. So we went 3-2 last week. Action didn't really get us back in the mix because the consensus was right there. But we're 21-18-1. That's 53, almost 54%. And we're kind of in the middle, top quarter, I guess it would be when you look at overall. So that's fine. We could be better. The top dogs at 80%. Good for them. I mean, they're dominating. And the top 100s at 66%. So we got some work to do there. But we look at it. We're 5 picks back of the pack from the cash. So we can do it. This is the last game of the second quarter, last week of the second quarter. Then we start another 4-week quarter and then a final 5-week quarter at the end. So we usually do well in that third and fourth quarter better than we do early on.
Yeah, we definitely have a ways to go, but I think that we're still right in this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So any big plans for this weekend? Are you just gonna be watching your games? I mean, I have to do a shout out to Night Ranger. He's already sent me information on the World Cup. We're gonna have to talk about the World Cup. I know you're a
Oh
soccer
yeah.
guy. In a couple weeks, he's already given me a whole breakdown. We might have to get him on. We haven't
Nice.
had any guests this season. Maybe we get the Night Ranger on and everybody can see this guy. I mean, Dempsey's a legend.
I like it. Yeah, we're definitely talking World Cup. I'm captaining a Calcutta team, big money league here that we have a draft here in a couple weeks. Well, shoot, I don't even know when the start date is, but I should I should dig into that. But I have a lot of research ahead of me, and I'll be
Yeah,
ready to talk about it.
nice. Yeah, for me, it's just the finals. Shockers finals. We'll see if
Oh
we get a
yeah,
championship. Let's get on our ship this year, baby. Come on, free swingers then Shockers. Let's go, baby.
yeah. What are the odds softball and football championship in the same season?
I mean, you could have probably gotten, boy, plus, I don't know, 2,000 odds going into the seasons, but
That's
now we're
pretty good.
talking, I mean, we're heavy favorites here. I bet you we're 2 touchdown favorites in this one.
Nice. That's a good number.
Don't bet against us, Action. I know I see that twinkle in your eye. You're thinking about going against the Sharks. You
I
can't do it, baby.
I do like dogs, especially ones that run RPO offense.
Fake, fake every time. You got to give them the ball. Uh, anyway, all right. Well, follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter and at Side Action Podcast on Instagram. Follow me at Wexpo on Twitter and on Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
Everybody, let's do it again this week.